See, we're starting. All right, looks like we're live. Cool. Sorry for the delay, everyone. We had some technical difficulties on my end, but today I'm joined by Scrap Princess, awesome author and illustrator of books such as Fire on the Velvet Horizon, my favorite monster manual. And today we're going to be looking at D&D spells, what makes them good, what makes them terrible, and ways to improve them. So I figure we'd look at the level 1 spells, maybe like the wizard spells in general from 5th edition, since most people seem to be familiar with those. And just sort of look at ways that the boring ones could be improved, and just generally how you and I look at, what makes a good spell, what makes a bad spell. What do you think makes a boring spell versus a good one?
How much you can set people on fire with it. That's always a go-to. People on fire. No, I think assuming like a campaign similar to the ones I like to run, and I'll try and acknowledge other people like different stuff at points. Spells with like a high amount of hijink potential. So lateral applications. I kind of wrote a whole semi-coherent blog post about this, but there are some spells that you see which are very much like they have a problem that they're created for, and then they solve the problem, and the problem's solved. And it's very much like a video game when you've got a red key door, and then you get a red key card, and then you go, and then the door opens, and the problem was actually even created for the spell. So I guess like what's a good example? I guess knock, like, there's a locked door, use knock, the door opens, and that's the only way you can use the spell. I mean, knock ties into a whole bunch of resource management kind of thing. So maybe it's the best example because there's some styles of play where you kind of making a choice of like, oh, well, if we use knock, we know it's going to work. It's not going to set up any traps. While if the thief uses the thief skills to do the same thing, then it might do some other things. So it's resource management, but ignoring that, knock is a good example of a spell that only does one thing. You can't really use it in any other way, and it just is unlikely to have any unintended consequences or applications. Well, spells that have high amount of unintended consequences, or the player can use them in a variety of different ways that the game designers or the GM never thought of, are generally going to be more interesting spells.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. We were talking a little bit about that on G+, and like what everyone mostly agreed on is that it's hijink potential. Like how many weird, unexpected ways can it be used? And Nox a really great example. But even like certain damage spells, like magic missile, and stuff like that, where it's like it can only do one thing, and the description is often like so abstract that you can't visualize exactly what's happening in the world, so you can't think of other ways that you can mess with it.
I guess magic missile, is probably the prime example of like the spell only existing to do some mechanics. Like it does the bare minimum to exist in the world, so it does damage. Like it can't be blocked, so you can't like really have any physical existence. I'm not even too sure if you can use it to target like some rope or inanimate objects or something. I think that's sometimes in different editions been ruled different ways. The damage type is often listed as arcane, so it's not like you can start a fire or light a candle or cut a rope or break a glass bottle with it. Well, I mean, depending on the GM. I mean, spells like that are really easy to reskin, and there's an argument for that like if you have these real simple game mechanics, like simple kind of boring spells, that's really easy for either the GM to modify them for the campaign or have individual wizards modify them into the campaign. But compare magic missile to something like burning hands or something like, fire is the kind of exact example of something that can get more complicated and be used in ways you didn't expect, and all it is different. The difference, other than the mechanics, is the fact it's actually creating something in the world. And then once you've created an object in the world, then you can think about it like any other object, and objects in D&D are notoriously the thing that you kind of go, oh, it's marbles. Hey, we can put them on the steps and make this guy fall down. Or it's a paper bag. We could fill it full of flour and throw it on a fire in between I've got a magic spell and I don't, you know? So the more actual physicalness in the world a spell has, the more likely it is to have hygiene potential.
Yeah, that was the principle I was using too. I was trying to make a D100 list of spells for Knave, the thing I'm working on, and trying to get like all of the different effects from the normal spell list, but making them into like concrete things that you're almost like summoning, so that like you can't tell people what they're going to do with them. So I guess let's look at the level 1 spells. Let's look at the first ones in order. So, alarm.
Alarm. Is alarm still? Sorry, I'm just not finding a good list of 5th edition spells to make sure they haven't changed anything.
It's just like it's just like the ward against intrusion. Like it just sets off like a mental alarm if someone walks through something, past a boundary. Yeah.
I mean, it's one of the spells that they've kind of like made really specific. Like it's a mental alarm rather than an audio alarm, you know? Like if it was like an audio alarm and you could, you know, like basically working like one of the pre-programmed illusions, I think you start getting showing up in some later versions of the spell, you know, then it would have more implications because you could kind of go like, have it make a beer noise, you know? When someone walks past a cave entrance and then, you know, the party is scattered like beer feces and beer hair and some half-chewed bones or something, and you know, or like you're selling someone like a cat in a bag saying it's a pig and you put alarm spell on the entry of the sack and then you open it and it makes an oink noise, you know, like just changing like some, like again, giving it an actual physical component such as it can make noise rather than a mental one.
Yeah,
it's definitely one of them spells that it kind of represents something that you think you can imagine a wizard doing in fiction, like, you know, the grumpy master like shows up to as soon as his apprentice opens the cupboard going, ah ha ha, I knew you would do this kind of thing, you know?
Yeah, I mean, making actual noises definitely improves it. Like the only thing I could think of that might improve it was to, like, take the general idea of alarm, which is like a trigger, right? And then maybe instead of making it more concrete, make it actually more abstract. Like you use the alarm spell to like set up spell triggers. So like find some other spell you want, and then just like you walk past this line, this other spell goes off, because then you got like infinite things you could do with that.
Like the bare minimum could be just like a mental alarm, you know, like a little mental, you know, like trigger. But then if the wizard has any other spell, especially, or if that seems like too crazy, then just illusion spells that can also go off and set the alarm or something. And I feel like it's probably not too broken because I don't know, like anything that's like requires you to set up an area and then lure an enemy into the area, that never quite works as you planned. Like that's the classic hijack, you know?
Yeah.
And that has like watch Scooby-Doo for instance, where they're always like, we'll just get the monster to fucking walk through this door and then the net will fall on him, and but it's always like, oh god, he's coming the wrong way, or Scooby's got caught in the net or something, you know, like
yeah, I agree. How about like well, next one's Burning Hands, and that's like a good example of a pretty good damage spell.
I don't know in 5th edition how much the mechanics work, but I think there was some cool stuff of like how you spread your hands was like the fire, and there was just something really haptic about that, like, you know, because you'd imagine casting and go, oh, if I go like this, it's a narrow beam, if I do this, it's a big spread, and you know, and it's flashy. It's a basic spell, but it involves fire, and there's something quite physical about it, you know, like there's a hook to it by imagining how your hands spread creates the spell. So,
and even like being more of a stickler on like exactly, you know, like maybe it creates like a, you know, a cone at, you know, whatever degrees. A lot of people kind of hand wave it, but like being more of a stickler for that can mean like there's more consequences, because then the GM can just start setting things on fire all over the place. If you have less control over where exactly it's burning. Next one is Charm Person.
This one I'm not really that fond of, because I guess charm isn't be interpreted in so many ways, whether it's like, hey, this guy is now on your side, like a video game, you know, they go from the red outline to a green outline. And also spells that are like save or don't. you know, like save or nothing happens are always a little bit, you know,
Yeah.
like, you know, like if you shoot a fire and the guy dodges it, that fire hits something, you know. If you, yeah, those kind of spells. So,
I mean, how can you make
depending on
it more concrete? You know, like
Mhm.
how can you make it more physical?
Yeah,
Because it's so mental. It's like a
well,
pure psychic spell.
it's either like giving it the kind of physicalness in the world or trying to give a better hook, because when they explain it as it makes someone regard you as a friend, and then the GM has to be like, oh, okay, let's say you suddenly were in a fight with a bunch of people who are your friends, and then your other guys who are your hobgoblin allies are also fighting them. You know, it's actually, I've always found that hard situation to imagine, because it's like, how much does it change? You know, like I think most people in a situation where they're like going, oh God, well, my friends are trying to murder my other friends, and these friends that are my friends that I've just met, like I feel like the spell would kind of break immediately, because you'd be like, wait, how long have I known these guys? What happened? You know?
Yeah.
So if it was like you know, for the next you know, for the duration of the spell, everything said by the caster is regarded in the best possible way for the situation by the by, you know, like everything you say is always going to be interpreted the best way, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not quite, and it's not quite a suggestion, like it doesn't force people to believe it or something, but like, so if someone's neutral to you and you go, hey, how you going, and you're all flirty, they're always going to respond like, oh yeah, you know, they're going to respond really positively. If you're in the middle of combat, you know, they're not going to like suddenly attack their friends, but they're more likely to go, no, wait, guys, let's hear them out, let's parlay, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And it can't force it, you know, and it's basically rigging the reaction roll, in other words, you know.
Yeah. When I was trying to rewrite it, like the only thing that I thought of was that like you can, you know, look at another character and you can like think things and force them to say them.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
it's like being charmed. I mean, it's not, you're not controlling their whole body, but like you can go even farther. It's more like control person, I guess. But you could like,
yeah,
you know, have like a voodoo doll, or like, you know, pretend that your hand's like a sock puppet and like
yeah,
actually
yeah.
control what they're doing. So it kind
Oh
of
yeah,
mimics the effect of it, but it's more closer to controlled person or something.
yeah, or hold person. I think
Yeah.
that kind of sounds like it's going to be more of a high, like might as well make that effect a high level effect, so you can really go to town with it, rather
Yeah.
than just have a version where you can move their arms, but you can't make them stab themselves. You might as well just make a high level version where you're going, yeah, you can fully make them fucking pull out their own eyes, and you know,
Yeah. Spells that tell you that you can do something cool, and then say, except for all the cool things that you want to do. It's just
yeah,
like, just make them higher level.
yeah, yeah. Like third edition had so many of those spells, like which are just like slightly different versions of the same spell. And I think it was mainly because they're trying to like pad up. They have all those skills like abjuration and illusionism or something, and they're trying to like make sure they had enough spells. But often it meant that like they had an illusion, and then they had a slightly better illusion next level, and you know, it's just like, oh come on, just, you know.
Yeah. Color spray.
And depends on this one. I sometimes like if the game mechanic is like in a psychic effect due to the spell, or the game mechanic is this is what happens in the world if you see a bunch of bright colors, you know.
Yeah.
Can you mimic the effects of color spray like that infamous colored crazy quilt guy from Batman? Like if you had a windmill and a bunch of paints, could you replicate the effects of color spray? That's a question I have. But as a spell, I don't know. It's not super exciting, but it's a, you know, it's a stunning spell that affects a variety of people, and it looks kind of weird and goofy, and it's got quite a dying earth feel to it.
Yeah, because
Like,
specifically, it is a dying earth spell, isn't it?
oh, this is one of the ones from there. Okay.
I think
I
it
know,
is,
like,
except in dying earth, it's actually like colored lasers, and you can just like fry people with it. It's not like a stunning spell. Yeah, which is a cooler idea. It's just like multicolored lasers shooting out of your hands.
oh wait, you sure that's prismatic spray? I know prismatic sprays from like the Jack Vance dying earth.
Yeah, you're right.
Oh,
That's different.
um,
The only thing I can
yeah,
think of is maybe like,
I don't know. I'm always tempted to have like a color spray that's like a low level prismatic spray. I mean, that's kind of breaking my rule, but I really like prismatic spray. Actually, I really like the kind of goofiness of like each of the colors of the rainbow, like fucks your shit up in a different way, you know?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, if you weren't going to use color spray for some reason, or like you're like, no one's going to make a high level. I just want, or you're doing like one of those short spell lists where you don't worry much the levels of the spells so much, you know, like there's quite a few little homebrews that have the system, and you go, okay, let's make color spray halfway between prismatic spray and color spray or something, or you had it so you could upgrade it so eventually like the red color, like which would make people enraged, would actually like at high levels make them be enraged, and also if they got angry enough to burst into fire or something, you know?
Yeah, so it would be sort of like your own. It's like a beholder. You got like lots of different ways to do different things.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
and if it was like colored lasers, you could theoretically use those for other things, right? You could like use them as like a laser pointer, as like a signaler,
Yeah,
things like that.
and about stuff, and if someone had mirrors, you know, you could set up mirrors and like bounce them off. You know, you could like do shots around the walls or something, or you could set up colored glass so only certain colored rays would go through it. You know, if you had red glass, then how does color work? I don't know. I don't know how colored glass works. I always get confused because it's like if something is green, it means it's not absorbing green light; it's reflecting. It's absorbing all the other things.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't understand color.
So plants are green because they don't use green light, while things that do use green light wind up looking purple, I think.
You would probably know that better than I would.
There's this whole insane thing with actually like photosynthesis not using green, and actually there's some bit like this used to be like a whole bunch of bacteria that used full spectrum of light, and they thought they were purple. Possibly the whole world was purple back in the day, but then plants had to use like an underused spectrum of light, which is actually like worse for them. But then they got more efficient at it, and then they killed all the bacteria.
Really, there's a theory that the whole world used to be purple.
Yeah,
that's amazing.
Yeah, like similar to like salt, like salt lakes when they have those little locks where they draw in sea salt and sea water, and then they evaporate in the sun until it's like salt, and they like look really red purple, and that's the specific kind of bacteria that used to dominate back in billions of years ago, and that's the only kind of place that you see it still is really highly salinized environments.
Cool.
Anyway,
the next one is, I guess there's a bunch of these. It's comprehend languages, so it's just like all the different knowledge and detection spells. I don't even know what to do with those. If there's a way to make them better.
So comprehend language is the fucking red key card door one, you know?
Yeah.
And it's like you have a problem and it solves the problem, and you don't have to do anything weird, or you don't have to interact with the world in any way more complicated than just using the spell. I think I've made suggestions before about like that you have to share a meal with the guy, or you have to eat some of their flesh or something. Like something you don't want to make it too annoying for the player to do, unless you have a game where it's like you just make every players have to work for everything and they enjoy it. But I feel like having to trick an enemy into sharing a meal with you, or make the player's character like having to like work out what an enemy eats and then eat it too, could be kind of fun. Like if you like, I want to talk to this audio, oh god, I have to eat sewage. Or like there's this weird kind of thing, and you're like, I don't even know if it eats, and then you're trying to like research what it eats or something. Hang on, busy. Sorry, that mate.
Or you could do something like going along with what you were saying, like some sort of preparation, like you need to like your hands have to be covered in their blood or something like that, right? So it's like in order to communicate with this foreign species, you have to harm them, and I guess that would probably amp up the hijinks.
Or like hold their tongue in your mouth or something,
Right, yeah. Okay, so yeah, so like, there's more of them like this, like
or it like switches your language over, So you wind up not being able to speak your own language.
Yeah, like invert languages, or you can speak theirs, but like you can't speak anything else. So like you lose your own language while you're doing it.
Yeah. or it's like super enhances. What are they called? Charades, like wizard charades, like the creatures can will always, the wizard can do charades in such a way that most creatures will understand them, but then it means the player has to use charades to communicate what they're trying to say to the DM.
That would be great. No, I'm a huge fan of that.
Yeah.
Does anything to add more player skill into just like, because people use spells just like buttons half the time, and just like get in thinking about it is awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, the next one's like detect magic, same sort of situation. Where like, does anyone really take the detect magic spell? I don't know if I've ever seen anyone actually take that.
Yeah,
it's just so, I don't even know like how often does that come up. Most of the time, people just say if you're a wizard, you can just detect magic. Most of the games I've played.
I mean, occasionally it's generally like you don't use it memorize it or use it until after the adventure, and then you cast it on the fucking loot, and then you go, this sword is glowing blue.
Yeah.
Until then, I mean, it is kind of useful because you can detect traps or detect magical creatures. I feel like in various versions, if it can allow you to reveal invisible things or vaguely be aware of invisible things, kind of gets bounced around. Like I think the versions where they didn't specifically have a reveal invisible creatures, they would have detect magic allow you to indicate the presence of a visible creature without showing you, and then the other versions they're like, yeah, just gonna make it like a wizard sight or something, or like an aura sight, I reckon. Like, so it can also indicate emotional state or unhealthiness, or like the classic psychic kind of impressions. So it's not going to tell you the history of a place, but you're going to go, I feel like a whole bunch of murders happened here, or
Yeah, I think I just decided to roll like almost all the detect spells into just one thing, just like True Sight or Wizard Sight or whatever. Just roll everything together, because individually they're so specific that you're not going to use them, but all together, like you can detect anything that's weird in this area. That's actually useful, and someone might take it.
Yeah, I think tying it into how the campaign world works, like if you're very like Lovecraftian, like sort of Lovecraftian, like if you're playing like there's the natural good civilized world, and then there's like encroaching corrupting forces that come in and mess things up. So, and all the monsters and magic are always going to be forces from the outside, so the detection spell is always going to go okay and reveal, it's going to indicate corruption or whatever. So you use it in a dungeon, and if there's something really powerful 3 rooms over, you'll go, you indicate something's kind of messed up over there, and it indicates this book has got an aura around it, and then this other thing,
Yeah.
So it's not going to tell you, these are chaos demon 3 dungeons over and stuff. But then if you're playing around with how, like what it detects in the world, like if you like the most thing in the world is like how much soul or how much sentience some things have, and then and then you kind of have actually all magic being kind of a little bit sentient, so therefore it wouldn't detect traps or something, but it would detect like magic and like intelligent creatures, or or like spirits and stuff. If you're doing a very Shinto kind of like natural spirit, everything has kind of like awareness and stuff, so you're both detecting like the presence of spirits, but also the natural state of the world at the same time. But then mechanical traps wouldn't be as much, or if you did it, say it was more like an emotional kind of vibe thing, so like it wouldn't detect the traps, but it would like go, there's a lot of like pain has been suffered in this room or something, or like this sword has been like created with like really vile intentions or something, and it may not necessarily be magic, because it might have just been like a sword being placed on someone to frame them for something, but so I think if you can work out what are the underlying ways the world works, like if it is like a natural versus unnatural, if it is a kind of like spirit world, like what is the kind of dualism of the world, and allow detect magic to access that dualism, kind of do it in a way that it kind of like indicates what's going on behind the scenes for the wizard, without just revealing things, without going, it detects a trap, it detects a +3 sword,
Right.
still gives the information that the player has to interpret and do something with, but you know.
I mean, it could add more challenge to the player if you allow like the detect spells to be very broad, kind of like you were saying, but give them like only partial information. So like even really specific stuff like, you know, you can taste anything that's, you know, within 100 feet of you, or or like you can hear what's going on anywhere around you, but you can't see it. So you just get like really concrete fragments. Then you got to put it together.
Yeah. Or like, it checks the most emotionally intense moment of an object that you touch, you know? So you can use it on a knife to see that it was used to murder someone, or you could use it and go, oh, this, you know, like if the person who created it was like, this is the best knife ever. I put like the hair of like the Cinder Dwarves and used the metal from a star horse, you know, and you go, oh, you know, oh, this is a significant dagger. But also you could use it to be like, you know, what has happened on this road? And then you go, oh, this is the, you know, where the Sun King's last daughter was eaten by a goat or something.
Yeah. The next one is disguise self.
I guess this depends on how many illusion spells you have and how much you're wanting them all to be separate illusion spells and stuff. I mean, I feel like you just might as well just have a first level illusion spell and, you know, making yourself look like a goblin, you know? Because disguise self is very like, oh, we made the first level illusion spell, it can't move or do sound. So disguise self allows a slightly specialized, more powerful version of it because it sticks to you and the duration's longer. It's like, can you just make an illusion spell?
Yeah. The borders are so badly defined, whereas like, you know, you can create, you know, an illusion with no sound, but like, why can't you just like envelop yourself with it and then you're just inside it? So
it doesn't move. I mean, you could play around with very like more witchy kind of things where you steal someone's identity or something. Like if you get a personal object from them, like a fingernail or hair or I don't know, clothing they've worn for a while, they look like you and you look like them, you know?
Sure. Or like, just a straight up body swap. Like you touch someone, you swap bodies. I mean, you're disguised as them, but now they're in your body.
I think body swap, you might as well go high level with that, you know? If you want a first level version, you know, because obviously like if they're really frail, if you're really powerful, if they're really powerful and you're really frail, that's quite a powerful spell. But like disguise self, if it's like everyone always mistakes you for the other person, you know, and vice versa, you know?
Yeah.
And like, and to the person, they still look the same. So they're like, why is everyone saying this horrible looking hag is me? And they say, I am a horrible looking hag or something, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, and there could be kind of fun things where like disguise self doesn't work on children or something, you know? So like if you disguise yourself as someone, you know, like you switch identities, the kids are like, what, that isn't dad, what's going on, you know?
Yeah, that reminds me of something I think in one of Zach's books where it's like the disguise doesn't work on dogs or children or something like that. It was in Death Frost Doom, I think.
Like, yeah, if you're going to have disguise self and an illusion spell, might as well make disguise self not work by just kind of making a hologram appear of your face, but make it actually like have the identity as an actual property in the world and like swap it around, you know?
Yeah. Like stealing someone's name.
Yeah. And maybe some requirement, like, you know, you have to know their name or you have to have something they've worn, you know?
Yeah.
Or some personal effect or something, or, you know?
Yeah, anything that, I guess, spells that actually make use of material components, because that's just like glossed over in like every edition of D&D, really. But if you could make that actually fun, then it's worth doing.
Yeah.
The next ones are just fairly dull. Like you got Expeditious Retreat and False Life.
I don't know why, but the name Expeditious Retreat is kind of funny.
You know what? I'm not even totally sure what it does. It probably just makes you run fast.
Yeah, it does. I don't know about 5th edition, but previously there was always like number increases, like number increase spells are the worst. Like ones that literally don't have any existence in the world other than they make a number get bigger.
Yeah. I mean, you probably just want to make it more concrete by just being really specific about how it makes you move faster.
I think it like Coward's Luck, it should be called, and basically it makes slapstick stuff happen towards your chasers and advantage you. Like your luck gets really good when you're running. It's like the classic running away movie. You know, if you run away from a market, some like people will be like carrying like a plane of glass or something behind you, or you'll knock over all these oranges. You know, like any ridiculous thing that can happen that impedes your pursuers and helps you get away. You know, like if they grab you, they just like don't manage to. They grab your wig instead of like, or your hat instead of that, you know, like any random bit of luck that can go your way happens your way for fleeing. And I don't know, that's just mentally a good image and makes hijinks happen, even if, you know.
And it encourages other strategies. Like no one ever runs away. Like even in a lot of the OSR games I play, people get clever, but hardly anyone ever runs away. So just making that more appealing would be cool.
Yeah. And you just use it to create mayhem. Like, I'm just going to like pickpocket the guard, fail, and then just run through the marketplace with the spell on to see how much chaos will be created as they try and catch me, you know?
Right. And you can even use it for other stuff. Like you could, you know, intentionally retreat through a particular area to cause more havoc there as part of some other plan. Featherfall. That's fairly multi-use.
Yeah. It's depending on how much you can use on objects, I think, which can think vary for addition, because like feather falling, like something really heavy and then just kind of like canceling the spell or like waiting for the spell to wear off, you know, is you know, or using it to like move a giant boulder into position by making it sort of light, you know, or like casting it on an enemy and then like shoving them and they just go miles because they're really light, you know.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, I think that one's actually pretty good. You got Find Familiar, which is really boring. Just tells you where your familiar is.
Animal companion. I feel like you need to make animal companions hard to get.
Yeah.
Because otherwise everyone will have someone and you'll forget about them all the time. And it's just really annoying when a player's like, oh wait, I've actually got a monkey. What was my monkey doing? And he was like, he was pooping in the corner. You know?
Yeah, it's either that. It's either they don't remember that they have it, or they're just like waiting for a particular level so they can unlock it. You know, at which point like an animal will just magically appear. Right, like, boom, there it is. I got a wolf now. Yeah. So
here's my hippogriff.
That's not a bad idea, actually. I think you can make that fun somehow.
Like a Zeus kind of thing, like you hit yourself in the head and like a Pegasus like jumps out of your head. It's like,
yeah, or like some sort of, you know, Pokemon effect where you can just, you know, one animal after another just sort of popping into existence.
Gibbering Malva.
Man, yeah. Fog Cloud. Again, that's a good one. It's very concrete, and I guess a lot of multi-use things you can do with it.
Yeah.
It's making something. It's like there's actually a fog cloud there.
Yeah. If you wanted to make it a little bit more fun, like the ability, like if you could set the color of it to the option of making it look like weird colors, so you could make it look like it was poisonous smoke, or if it was like you enchanted a bag and then you could suck one localized weather phenomenon into the bag and then release it later. So you could like suck up, like, you know, you could like get a bath going and suck up all the steam and then use it as a fog cloud, or you could use like you'd suck up a bad smell into the bag and then use it later, you know. Like that'd be kind of fun because that way you could like, you know, it couldn't suck up enough poison gas to make you immune to poison gas, but you know, like it could make a small area safe for poisonous gas later on or something, or you know, like, and or like,
yeah, especially if it could
thundercloud, like it's still a thunderclap and then you open it later and it makes this big bang or something, you know.
Yeah, especially if it could actually like make more of whatever you sucked up into it. So like, yeah, you somehow run the bag through a thundercloud, then you can open it up and actually a storm expands out of the bag. That'd be awesome. Grease is a great spell.
Oh yeah. I mean, some people are like, well, what's the point? You know, like, why have a spell that mimics something that costs like 20 copper pieces or whatever on the equipment list? And it's like, yeah, but it's instant. Like, you know, like if you're like, I wish I greased that staircase earlier, and you had that block of grease in your bag, you were in the middle of combat, you know, that staircase isn't getting greased, you know, but like, you know. Yeah. And especially if depending on interpretation, if you can grease objects that people are holding, or you can grease yourself, and then like, you know, like prevent yourself being grappled or something, or if the grease catches on fire, you know. I feel like, yeah, grease is fine.
I mean, it is a question of like how, should you have a lot of spells that can just reproduce stuff that you could be carrying around in your inventory, right? Like, should there be a grease spell if you could just carry a block of grease?
I reckon 1 or 2 is fine, because the instant evocation of it, you know. And I feel like low level spells would often be like replicating mundane things, because the wizard's just learning about how to do magic, and then later on it's like, oh, okay, cool. Well, you'll need to know how dimensions work, and you know, like what this thing is. But at the first level, wizard is like, okay, you know, grease. This spell makes the grease, you know.
Yeah. I mean, the equivalent that I came up for that was just marble madness, where your pockets are always full of marbles. It's the same thing. It makes it slippery, but you know, they're marbles, so in theory you could do more stuff with them. You just throw marbles everywhere.
I think I've done a few frictionless surface ones that just make a surface frictionless.
Yeah.
Because just the you know, like a surface just completely frictionless, you know, also means you can just like make something frictionless and just push a block and have it slide for miles. I mean, I know, let's just call grease fine. Yeah, it gets a pass.
Let's see. Identify. We kind of talked about that already. It's basically like all the other detect spells.
Yeah, I mean that gets into a whole big thing about how you use magical items. How common are they? You know, do you want players to immediately start using them? You know, or like how much do you want them to be interactive with NPCs and stuff?
Yeah, and anything that like turns like that into like a process where it's like you have to know this spell to figure out what an item is rather than experiment with it, I'm not really in favor of. Like,
yeah, it depends on how it's used. Like a potion is like, okay, you drink it and something happens. Like if you don't want to risk it, get someone else to drink it, you know?
Yeah.
But when it's like a staff and it's like you need to know the command word or point it, it's like that staff is going to sit in a backpack and not get used for so long, you know?
Yeah.
You know, like and if you run to magic items enough that it's like it just becomes an automatic process of like, yeah, we go to the stage and we pay 1,000 gold pieces. What does it do? You know, like it's like, well, maybe just don't bother then, you know?
Yeah, I would probably just avoid like having magic items where you had to do that. I would make all magic items like you can use them. They're all dangerous, so you got to experiment.
Yeah.
Let's see. You got jump. Jump is really good, and long strider. Those are both just movement spells, but I mean, jump is super multi-useful.
Jump and long strider.
Yeah.
I guess long strider, if it makes your legs really like crazy long, like a cartoon's kind of fun. Because that way you can like step over pits and stuff. What is it? Is it just increase your movement speed?
It probably does. Let me look it up. But yeah, I mean, make your legs super long would be awesome. Because it's making you tall as well. So you're not just faster, you're taller.
Yeah. I think jump's kind of or needs a bit more. Like if you can also use it on objects and then the object likes to jump, you know, if you can use it on inanimate objects and then on an object starts jumping around, you know, like, so if you cast it on someone's sword, they have to make rolls or it jumps out of the hand, or if you cast it on something on fire, then it starts jumping around, it becomes a hazard, you know?
Yeah, like all spells are automatically improved once you can cast them on everything.
Yeah.
Basically. Yeah, like long strider, the description 5th edition is your speed increases by 10 feet. Like that's the entirety of the description.
But and there's still expeditious retreat is also in it.
Yeah, it's crazy that those are both in there. Like so many of these could be collapsed into the same thing. I don't get it. But it seems to be a pattern.
That's the worst spell. Long strider is the worst spell there. It's a number increaser. It's redundant because there's another spell does it. And it's also, I feel like, kind of useless even in a utilitarian way. Like, why does the mage want to be 10 move faster than anyone else? Like,
it's only slightly faster. That's like what? Increasing your speed by 33%. So you're just like a slightly faster normal person.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's not like most people don't even track that when they're playing anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, if it makes your legs, I don't know, I'll just get rid of it. Or make your legs kind of like cartoonishly stretchy so you can step over pits or something, and then that's still not great. And jump, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess if Expedition Retreat is the like Coward's Luck one that makes a whole bunch of like slapstick happen to like cover your retreat, then, you know, long strider, you know, then there's a niche open up for a straight movement increaser, in which case maybe it makes little wings appear on your back of your ankles, and it kind of gives you a little. You can like glide over small pits, like the hover boots from Zelda Ocarina of Time or something.
Mm-hmm.
Or just, I don't know. It's just so bad.
See, like I think that the long legs would be pretty good. Like I did another one at one point that where the spell was just like you grow 2 extra arms, just like doing small mutations that are potentially useful. I feel are pretty good, just because people are going to use them in ways you're not going to expect.
But they're just like Gaussman stretch style. So you could use it on your legs to make you like walk faster, or you could use it to reach out and grab an object. But it didn't really allow you to do coordinated stuff that well. Like like you couldn't. Oh, I don't know. You could use it to do like a ranged touch attack or something. But
or just let people cast it on objects, and just whatever you cast it on gets really stretchy.
Yeah.
It's really long. The next ones are just total number modifiers. You got stuff like mage armor, and like protection from good and evil and stuff like that.
Oh, the protection from good and evil has always given me a headache because like if you're gonna have summoning things be your thing, just make it like an actual ritual, or like like actually go, okay, this is how you summon things in this world.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess I can see why it's simpler to try and do it as spells, but then it just comes across awkward. And then there's the whole, it kind of is doing all supernatural forces are unnatural and they're external for the world, therefore, are outsiders, but then it also has the natural world is good and forces of good, so it's like either have it so anything from the world is unnatural, or have it so only evil things are unnatural and natural things are angels and forest spirits, and
Yeah, I would probably turn it into just like a factional thing. So like if you want to, if you're casting protection from evil, like you cast it and like a very small angel appears, right? Or protection from good, a very small like imp appears, and now you have to deal with another personality that's there, and they're like opposing the forest that you don't want, but it's not like abstract anymore, at least.
Yeah, I guess I think it needs to be thought carefully about how you're doing the world building, and like because how like what and like there's a lot of implied world building in it, which I think can be a bad fit depending on how the world works. And I reckon, think about that with the spell or something. I don't know, like say the Shinto Studio Ghibli kind of thing, like Princess Mononoke, where natural forces can be intensely magical and intensely kind of unnatural seeming, but they're actually reflections of the natural world,
Yeah.
While other settings, like the natural world is the mundane one, and so you'd never get, this place is so natural that it's weird, and so I guess if you have, I mean, I guess you could do that more factionally, so having intense technology becomes its own kind of weirdness state as well. So therefore the protection either goes, hey, this is like making it dedicated to like the weird forest Shinto, like knocking head guys, or this is making it, super weird and crystalline and technological and lawful or something, like if it like aligns an area to a faction, so it actually becomes more like more like an environment. Like if you're like aligned to these like animus forces, then suddenly it makes all this grass grow around the protection circle, and like and all these plants kind of grow and butterflies appear. But if you're aligning it to like a cold lawful force, like all the life grows and these crystals start forming and like random patterns start becoming more geometric and stuff or something.
Yeah, I mean, I think just even retheming it as protection from law or chaos would immediately imply to people like a setting or imply actual factions rather than like the moral system that it sort of implies the way it's written. So we also got shield, I guess it's like mage armor. So like how would you make protection spells interesting? Because both of those are super abstract.
I mean, I guess actually give it a physicalness, like make it a glowing disc that floats around and tries to deflect objects, and therefore you can also use this disc like the floating disc spell. You could you could like make it as the same as the shield and mage armor. Just make it one spell, and you can use it to carry things, or you can have it like hover around defensively and stuff, and it blocks one attack, so you can overwhelm it by having lots of different attacks or something. Or you have it so it makes your robe like as strong as metal or something, you know. So you can also kind of use your robe to cut people, or you know, like use your robe to like as a temporary really strong rope or something, or make it increase your luck, so like blows are more likely to miss other people and hit, you know, increases fumble range. It creates this weird unnatural luck or something, or have it create like a little duplicate doll of yourself, and then like, well, not even like it like literally creates them from Oculus. So you've got this little version of you carry in your pocket, and like wounds happen to them instead of you, but it screams in pain or something. I mean, that's pretty much just flavoring and number increaser, but yeah, I think it needs to have some kind of physicalness in the world, so it then has some lateral applications.
Yeah.
So just armor class increase doesn't mean it has any physical. It doesn't have any explanation for it that can be used in weird ways.
Yeah. I feel like a lot of the improvements are basically just merging multiple spells together, just make them more broad so that they can be used more ways. Let's see, Ray of Sickness. It's not very specific is the problem. Like maybe if it was Ray of Specific Sickness, that would be a little more interesting.
It could be like a Pandora's box kind of thing, or like, you know, like you could pick up a disease and you put it, you know, like medieval style, like it allows you to see the demon or imp responsible for an illness, and you actually pick it up and you put it in a bag, and then later on you can throw it at someone, you know, and then they get the disease or something.
Or even diseases that you see in the real world. So you would go to like certain plague-stricken places on Earth just to collect as many diseases as possible.
Yeah. Or if it was like, I give it like a ray of blight, you know? So when you're shooting this weird ray and it makes plants wilt and people like blister and pustule and meat rot or something, you know? Which is, you know, if it had like a real, if it wasn't like video gaming, you know, if it wasn't like you shoot the beam and then the debuff state appears over them like sickened or whatever, if it was actually like, you know, you imagine like an actual beam that you point at like paper and the paper like rots and stuff, and then you know, like an entropic ray or something, you know,
like Ray of Entropy.
Yeah. I don't know. That's not getting too crazy, and that's kind of fun, you know.
Yeah.
So you can also use it on inanimate objects to weaken them. You could use it on things to rot them or preserve them. You could use it on wounds. You know, use them like. And I reckon the idea of just this weird, sickly-looking beam appearing across someone and then just like Shin Godzilla. You know, the laser beam goes across the city, and then a couple seconds later it bursts an explosion. It's like that. It moves across someone, and they're like, "Oh, that's fine." And then all these like blisters and like warts go after them. You know.
Yeah, anything that actually like turns up the Nurgle factor. Would be a huge improvement. Yeah. Just make things a little more terrifying than just like, because in most 5th edition games, it's like, oh, you got a disease and like, you know, 2 of your stats go down slightly and you don't think about it otherwise. But it's like, go full Nurgle and suddenly they're scared. So we got Silent Image. That's similar to like the Disguise Self or all the illusion spells. It's all just the same thing. It's just, you can make stuff look like it's not.
Or just like it's an illusion spell, but you can choose to have it being audio or visual or, you know, or you know.
And then we got Sleep. I mean, that's one of the big standbys, especially in OSR games.
I mean, I'm repeating what I wrote on the blog, but Sleep's fine as an effect, but I kind of don't like it getting used regularly because I can't. It's just you know, if you're watching like Xena, Warrior Princess or something, or like if you're watching like a cheesy Dungeons & Dragons show and every fight scene the wizard went sleep and X amount of guys just went and lay down, you'd kind of go, this is stupid. You know? So it's fine as like, you know, but if it's like a, you know, like, you know, you have some magic powder that makes people asleep or something. I guess if it like you cast it on things that people eat and then it makes them like drowsy and asleep or something. So it knocks people to sleep, but you can't just like wave it around as a stun spell in combat, because I feel like if you've got color spray as the area effect in the Capicator, then don't have sleep do the same thing. Because I think in a lot of versions is hypnotic pattern, color spray, and sleep.
Yeah.
and they all kind of are that. And like you could just make the area effect stun the spell, and then have sleep more powerful, but you cast it on an object, like you cast it on a bottle of wine, or you could even have it so it increases the effect of something. So if you cast it on alcohol, it makes people drunk and sleepy really fast.
Yeah.
If you yeah.
I mean, maybe there's a way you could make the effect more interesting. Like I had a friend growing up who would have night terrors, and it's the thing where you're asleep but you act like you're awake, and they just walk around reacting to things that weren't there. And doing that as like a mass effect would have a similar like disabling effect, but it would sure be a lot more interesting. Sorry?
How do you know that they weren't there? Just because you couldn't see what your friend was reacting to doesn't mean they weren't there.
Yeah, that's true. All right, there's just a couple left. We got Tasha's hideous laughter, which just seems like in most of the rules, it's just like a disabling spell, basically.
Yeah.
They just can't do anything.
Yeah, I hate this spell. I mean,
I would just roll it into the other disabling spells, just like make one thing that's interesting.
I think it's like a personal preference thing, but I don't know. I just prefer it for that kind of effect to be like a thing a monster could do, or it could be a weird spider bite. I don't know. I just don't like it being. It's like it's an uncanny effect, like laughter becoming contagious and becoming so powerful that it disables people, and it works because it doesn't. It's unnatural. It's by nature it's rare, and it's uncanny because it doesn't normally happen. But if it's like regularly something that a wizard does, it's kind of like it loses the uncanny effect and then just kind of becomes goofy. Like the Joker doesn't have a Joker beam which makes people like suddenly he doesn't just always make people laugh. It's always kind of like he poisons people and then they're dead. But he doesn't always regularly do it because it would like lose the effect if everyone's laughing around the Joker.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess like the idea that if it did damage, like it's the longer it worked, the more damage it started doing damage. So if someone couldn't like resist it for long enough, then they wound up killing them or something.
I mean, you can make it a bit more interesting by making it infectious in some way, but that would pretty dramatically increase its effect. If you could spread it through a lot of people. Although, I mean, you could have it work both ways, that anyone who hears it, including your allies, could be infected. So you could have it cut both ways.
Or it makes something, or you cast it on someone or an area or on yourself or on something, and if people laugh at it, it messes them up,
Yeah.
You have to make people laugh for it to work. So it's better as like an ambush kind of spell, or using in a kind of as a like in a peaceful kind of parlay situation or something. Like you kind of go, I would have it so it like it affects a group of people, or affects an area, and if anyone starts laughing in that area, then they laugh really strong, and then they get another like resistance roll, and if they fail that, then they become paralyzed with the laughter, and then if they fail that again, then they wind up taking damage from the laughter. And also these are if someone's laughing, your odds of resisting the laughter decrease or something.
Yeah.
So once there's 10 people laughing, it's really hard, like the spell is more effective the more people he is. But it also means you have to work out how to make your target laugh.
And how to do that fairly. I mean, you also do things like you cast the spell on yourself, and the next person who laughs at something you do is disabled by it or something, just to get more player skill. But again, like how do you judge whether it would make the NPC laugh?
But that's like, that's like, how do you judge the NPC would like decide your character was hot or not?
I guess so.
And I feel like it wouldn't get used in combat as much because it's difficult. But then it's like, if these like cruel bullying brutes, you're like, I will like, okay, my mage character will slip and like fall on their face and they'll laugh,
Right.
I mean, you could basically use the reaction roll to determine if they laugh or not, or or just just like a simple like like I don't know, depends on how much you want them to use it, I guess. I reckon to be like I reckon like if the player has got a really good insight and a sense of humor of who they're using it on, or if they've like done some really elaborate preparations, or what they describe actually makes you kind of crack up as a GM, then it automatically works. Otherwise, maybe like 50-50 or like 1 in 6 or something.
Yeah, I'd be tempted to just make it actual people at the table laugh.
Yeah.
But a lot of people just don't like that much. Metagaming is probably what they would be calling it.
Yeah.
So we got Tensors floating disk, which we sort of talked about before. You could sort of fold that into the shield spell.
Yeah.
I like that idea. I did something with it where you can cast it on any object and you just make that a floating object. So it just floats, like 6 inches off the ground. I had a game where one of the kids I was DMing cast it on another kid, and they just like now they're just like they have no friction, they're frictionless, and they're just floating 6 inches off the ground. And their friend just like stood on them using like a surfboard and just like surfed around the dungeon on them, which is great. I'm like, hey, yeah. So
I think also working out if the disc is sharp or not, or physicalness, and like if the disc is like lying horizontal and someone fucking runs into it, does it like does it chop them in half or not? Like working out if you want to do that and give it something. Like I hate when they're like, I think second edition had lots of spells that had just like 5 paragraphs explaining how no, you couldn't do all these things. Obviously players had been doing and GMs had been getting annoyed because it was too, it happened too often, or they felt like it was too potent, and they were like, no, it just allows you to carry more. It just increases your encumbrance,
Right. Yeah. Yeah. The urge to like actually forbid all of the loopholes ends up just turning something into a number increaser, like inevitably. Like you have, in order to make like the spell really controlled and to make it do just what the designers want to do, you have to remove the physicality.
Yeah.
Which is what they end up doing.
I
think
is the thing like with games that don't trust, like where there's a disconnect between the amount of how the player and the GM interact or something, like abstract number increases often I think favored those dynamics, because it's like if every time you think of a weird way to use a spell, the GM makes it incredibly difficult or turns it down, or either because they don't want you to do things or they want things to be hard, so you have to think really hard. And there's a disconnect in your play styles, then those abstract spells are really appealing because you don't have to argue with the DM about how it works. You like, I cast a magic missile, it does X damage,
Right.
So I can see how and I think there was trying to like idiot-proof DnD, or try and rough off the smooth edges, like has kind of like made a lot more of these abstract number increases with less loopholes, because I guess they were getting all the feedback from people complaining like, how does the spell work, or the player does this, or I tried to use this, my DM didn't let me, and they just tried to remove all that to make it like,
Yeah, it does come down to like not trusting the players as much, which is,
I think having I think articulating all that and being able to conversations like about pushback of going, okay, as a DM, how much do you let players do weird stuff, and how often do you make it just challenging, and like have those conversations, so it isn't like it's cool if the game talks about those conversations and go, here are things that are going to come up in the game, and here's how to talk about them, and so the game should address them, but trying to address them just purely mechanically is whack, especially if it's like, how about let's just increase the some numbers, how about these no arguments, like, look, I'm just taking the toys off you, you can't play nicely. This spell just increases 10 plus 10 to movement. There, sick of it.
What's like especially interesting is that the more you turn spells into just number increasers, the less you feel like a wizard. I've discovered it's like once everything is super physical, then you just feel like a wizard, because like crazy stuff is actually happening and you're like being creative with how you're messing up the universe with it, right? Like you don't feel like a wizard if just like, I feel slightly tougher now, I can walk 1 step more. You're not a wizard,
especially if it's really like you're doing a roll, especially if it's a really roll heavy game where it's just like, okay, cool, I will cast enlarge on the fighter, and I will cast blur on the thief, and then I will hide behind this and cast magic missile, like
right. I agree.
Yes, like I will boost everyone's stats and I will start doing some DPS.
Just skipping to, there's only a couple left. So we got Thunderwave, Unseen Servant, and Witch Bolt. I mean, Witch Bolt just seems like, it's another magic missile, basically. It's a bland damage spell. Though Unseen Servant has obviously tons of applications.
Unseen Servant is great. Definitely need some guidelines about how coordinated it is, whether what happens if you try and pick up multiple small objects, you know, like can you move around a cloud of dust for it? What about sand particles? What about a whole bunch of coins? But yeah, you know, just give some guidelines about what, you know, like if it's like, it's basically like the is an invisible, clumsy servant, you know?
Yeah.
You know, so they can't like, you know, like pick up a needle and thread and quickly sew someone's mouth shut or something, you know, but they can like pour a bottle of oil over someone's head where you hide behind a barrel, you know?
I guess my question is, how important is it that it's invisible? Like the way that I did it, I just substituted Arnold Kemp's spell Catherine for Unseen Servant. It's just like you get Catherine. It seem to make it a little more interesting.
I think it's important that it's invisible. It's just like, you know, it's just the classic like, woo, this thing's floating in the air, you know?
Yeah, you get the Scooby-Doo factor.
Yeah. What was the other one? Witch Bolt. How does that work in 5th edition?
I've never used it. I think that it's just another like damage spell.
Yeah. I mean, I'm okay with damage spells because it's like, you know, if one like makes you vomit acid at someone, and another one, and then burning hands makes you shoot fire, and then like evil gaze makes you like make people bleed if you look and make eye contact with them long enough, you know?
Yeah.
Like those are all damaged range spells, but you know, like they work differently. As long as it's not a magic missile, but this one makes you make an attack roll, but still does nothing, you know?
Right. Yeah. So that's basically it for all the first level spells. And you know, I'm gonna put the link to your blog post in the description below so people can read that too.
Yeah. And just comment, go, these are stupid. Because I think the first one got more attention, and I kind of just read it in this real loose kind of like, this is my, you know, like really like, this is just my opinion. No one cares about this. I'm just shit talking about these spells. And then people were like, this is really bad, like complicated critique analysis of the spells. And I was like, oh, well, I didn't think anyone was paying attention. Like, you know?
Yeah. I mean, I think it struck a chord just because like people want to feel like wizards, and just like the amount of benefit you get out of it. Like when I first tried to write my spell list where I made everything really concrete, like it was like night and day. The game felt completely different once those spells did that. It was just like, I'm never going back to just like number increasers.
But in defense of number increases, I think some people have like played wizards where it was really difficult to do anything, and the only time they felt like competent or powerful was when they just had spells that just worked, you know?
Yeah.
And whenever they tried to like use grease or, you know, do anything else, the DM just made it too difficult for them or really shot them down, or, you know?
Yeah.
Because people like to feel useful in a game, and, you know, just, I don't know. I think there's kind of like other elements that should be addressed for that. But yeah, in defense of other spells that I find are boring, but other people don't find boring, that, hey,
yeah,
maybe it's just your GM's me.
Okay, well, I gotta wrap up, but
okay.
Scrap, thank you for joining me. This has been awesome. And I know a lot of people are really excited about it. I got a lot of people on Twitter who were super excited to show up, and it looks like we did get a lot of people, so that's cool.
I hope I didn't ramble too much. I tried to not ramble.
No, this is definitely like one of the more useful GM chats I've ever had, just because it's like talking about specific stuff rather than like vague stuff. But yeah, check out Scrap's blog. Put it down in the description below.
Yeah, and feel free to invite me again on any other topics.
Will do.
Cool.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. See you guys later.